Welcome to a new BIM Talk series by Integrated BIM. Today's guest is Gavin Crump, aka Aussie BIM Guru. As you can see from his title, he's a BIM guru at the same time YouTuber. And if you look at the title of this video, you can see that BIM influencers, and you might say, what is BIM influencer? But in order to understand that, we need to first focus on what is an influencer. An influencer is someone who makes an impact, as well as inspires and influences peers in a particular niche. In our case, our niche is architecture, engineering, and construction industry, or else AEC industry, and we are specifically focusing on BIM-related contents. Hi Gavin, thank you for joining to our channel and our video for the BIM Talk. We are really excited to hear BIM advice, your career path, your introduction more about you and your personal and professional career, as well as the future of your channel.
Oh, thanks for having me on board. It's great to be here, and I love all these little series that you're putting out. I think it's great to connect everyone in the industry, and I really look forward to talking about what we love, BIM, consulting, just generally what we do for a living.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the reasons we put the BIM Talk into the industry and we want to make it available for everyone is that people can get this kind of discussions in just paid seminars and congress and so forth. So it's not really available for the people, like for the entire industry. And Morzia said a very good, she had a very good quote, and she was saying, BIM is not for experts, it's for everyone. And that's what we are trying to do, like to reach everyone and give more benefit, more value to the people. We can start with a conversation about hearing a little bit more about you. Obviously, your channel, the people knows about you, but generally in the industry, there might be a lot of people who doesn't know about you. So you can explain a bit about your background, how you arrived at the current, your career path, and we can just start from there.
Yeah, sure. So I guess I can start at the beginning, I guess. I have an architectural background. So whilst I have been working for about almost 10 years now, time flies well. I started off doing my bachelor's and master's in architecture, and I knew sort of about BIM at that point, but I hadn't really interacted with it very much at university. There wasn't as much emphasis on educating BIM at that point. We had, I think, one class in Revit, and that was about the most we had to do with BIM software. But my first project that I was fortunate enough to work on was a $2 billion hospital, which was obviously a major project, and it was being delivered entirely in Revit across multiple disciplines. And that really gave me a passion for maintaining good quality BIM modeling, best practices, and also just managing a project team, which eventually led me towards the path of a BIM manager, which I worked at a few different companies in the capacity of. And then I've recently moved on as a BIM consultant to pursue my own pathway in the industry and BIM. And I guess I'm very passionate about BIM. I've launched my YouTube channel recently as well. I'm just like yourself, and just very, very keen about sharing knowledge and bringing people up to a similar level to make sure that no man or woman is left behind in this pretty chaotic world of BIM that has a lot of platforms and options. But very excited to be in the industry right now.
Gavin has a great channel. It's called Aussie BIM Guru, and he shares a lot about Revit and advanced Revit techniques, as well as some Dynamo techniques, and they're really great, especially Dynamo scripts that will automate your daily workflow, because you are repeating a lot of tasks that in daily routine, and generally you don't think about automating those. But once you automate once, you get kind of sick. You want to automate all other workflows, so it's a kind of never-ending process. But at the same time, it's fun, and you just don't work on repetitive tasks, and you just focus your energy on design and doing production.
Yeah, Dynamo has definitely been a pretty heavy focus for my channel, and also a pretty heavy focus for me as well. I started using it about 3 years ago, but didn't really get serious about it until roughly a year, maybe a year and a half ago, where I started seeing those opportunities to streamline workflows and also just to unlock more sophisticated ways of working, like generating more complex forms and analyzing the models in more meaningful ways and automating audit reports. It's pretty amazing what Dynamo's done for our industry and other programs before it, like Grasshopper as well, that to a lesser extent introduced us to computation. But that's been a real focus for my channel to share better ways of working and smarter ways of working to those that are willing to sort of come on the complex journey of computation. But yeah, definitely a big focus for me, and it's definitely changed how I approach just my everyday work and just what I enjoy doing. It's like playing a video game when I work now, which I love. I love video games too. So it's it's definitely changed AEC for me.
In a second, we will jump onto your daily routine, like daily life, like personal life, and the work routine. But before that, can you also tell a little bit more about, like we know that you have the channel now. We know that you arrived and you're practicing as a BIM manager. But what kind of clients are you serving? What kind of projects are you working right now? So that might be also interesting to hear before we move on to your daily routine kind of stuff.
Yeah, sure. So I guess I've been operating since roughly, I launched in February, and we all know what happened around February, so it was an interesting time to launch. But I guess I probably didn't really hit my full pace of work until maybe around April, June, just because I was doing a lot of business setup. And once I really got my business moving, one thing that really did generate a lot of leads for me beyond just my YouTube and my LinkedIn marketing efforts was a lot of the content and templating I was developing for my business. And that brought in quite a lot of clients that were looking to sort of either retemplate or start with a more complex and detailed system. And that led me to be able to work with quite a wide variety of clients. I had one engineering client, a few architects, and a lot of small home builders. So I worked with a lot of different scales of clients that I guess I wouldn't have had the chance to work with if I was in a major architectural practice like I used to be. So it was interesting to go down to some of the smaller and more intimate project scales as well, but to build a system that could deliver in volume instead. So rather than working on one really big project with a template, I could apply that template to hundreds of projects for people. So that was a really big lead generator. And I've also been helping some architectural firms to train and upskill into programs like Dynamo to change the way that they operate and audit. So some of my services have been more strategically focused. So that's been one of my goals in my consulting, to not necessarily just be the expert that comes and does all the work, but instead the expert that comes and gives some tools to people that they can learn and pilot ultimately. And as a one-man consulting venture, like it sort of is the only way I can work, because if I worked full-time for someone, I wouldn't have time for anyone else. So I ultimately do have to give those tools to people and train them how to use them. That way I'm really just there if they need me rather than always there. So it's been a really interesting journey so far, and I've got to meet a lot of people, and some of them outside Australia too. So it's been great to work with people that aren't necessarily working to the exact same standards as me, and I've got to learn more about ISOs, and it's been
Where
brilliant.
are they located?
So I've had some in America and some in the UK. They're probably the two hotspots for my international clients. I'm in the UK mainly just because they are quite advanced with their BIM. So some of the things I'm doing are obviously more suited to advanced BIM projects, and I found that a couple of the videos I've done on YouTube have generated some interest, and they've said, "Oh, we'd like that workflow, but like much more complex." So I found that they've been some natural leads that have come, and I do have quite a strong UK following as well, so that probably was related. America has been partially for training, Dynamo training in particular. There's a lot of Dynamo that's getting quite popular in America, probably through a lot of the culture of some of the people that work there as well. America's got a very vibrant BIM community, especially on Twitter, and I think that might have been related because they saw I was doing tutorials on YouTube again and said, "Oh, obviously he hopefully knows what he's talking about. Let's get him to teach us how to do this too." And also just little jobs here and there that just popped up. Yeah, but got to stay organized too. That's the hard part.
I'm seeing the cat in the background as well, so it's he couldn't stay.
This is one of my cats. This is Aussie or Oswald. I'm a huge fan of Batman, so I named him after the Penguin from Batman. Oswald Cobblepot, and then his brother's sitting just over there off camera sleeping. And he's called Edward or Eddie, but I named him after the Riddler from Batman, so Edward nickname.
So they're both related to Batman.
Yeah, they're about 2 now, so yeah, they keep me company.
Actually, it's nice. I mean, like it keeps you motivated and happy. Like during the day when you are like demotivated or something happens. Like we are all people, so just seeing that pad around and hugging it and playing with it just like motivates you back to the work as well. So that's really good. Yeah,
they're very friendly cats, and they've been good company when I'm working from home, I guess too. So
absolutely. Let's discuss a little bit about your daily routine. Like for the personal and work life, what kind of daily routine you have?
I mean, the routine's been a lot more flexible than it used to be. I'll be honest; it's not as regimented as it would have been when I worked full time. Because I guess when you go to work 9 to 5, everything else sort of just falls into place. With clients that come to me at different times and different days, and sometimes not in the Australian time zones, my schedule does get quite haphazard. Lots of Zoom meetings being requested all the time. So I wouldn't say I necessarily have a start time and a finish time necessarily. I find I'm quite flexible on either end of the day. But I do make sure that I try not to work more than like a standard working day if possible, just to try and have some sort of balance. I will be honest with COVID changing, I guess, how people work and a lot more people working from home. I found that a lot of my clients, their schedules become quite slightly more haphazard as well. So I think my work sort of has been a reflection of that as well.
One of the downsides of being like working from home and being like self-dependent and like I would say being a freelance is kind of one man consulting. It is that you need to program yourself a very good discipline. You know, like you need to have a very good program so you don't wake up like 12 o'clock and like go into the bed late at night, and then your routine changes and you cannot keep up with the project deadlines. So you need to be really disciplined. Actually, you need to be more disciplined than you when you go to the work in the company, because then obviously you go 9 to 5, your strict hours. But like when you are independent and free, that's a little bit, it requires really a discipline. How do you manage it?
I mean, it's just probably from self-discipline, just from maintaining my time. I have a relatively organized calendar that I try to consult at least on a daily basis, just to keep track of what's coming up each day. And I have a bad habit of using alarms to to get myself to do things at the right time. So my alarm clock has about something like 24 alarms next week, just to remind me, like, you've got a meeting in an hour. It just keeps me, I'm sort of like my own secretary, I guess, in some regards, how I operate. Yeah, I probably do need to get a little bit more routine into my life. Probably in the new year, once everyone starts going back to normal, it'll help encourage me to find that schedule as well. Yeah, some sort of connection with the outside world.
So that's like kind of a sacrifice you're doing when you're one-man consulting and you're doing freelance. So I mean, until you set it up things, like it really settles properly, you need that kind of routine. The second, we'll be discussing and speaking more about your thoughts and your excitement about how the future of the BIM and how it will evolve. But shall we discuss a little bit like about your biggest challenges that you faced in your personal and professional life? Like, what were the biggest challenges and maybe some failures as well in connecting to them?
Yeah, so I mean, I've got probably a good one for both. I'll probably start professionally. Probably the biggest challenge I had was that the first time I became a BIM manager, I was quite young. I was probably in my 3rd year of my career. I sort of jumped over the BIM coordinator role to some degree. I was a very strong technician, very good at the software, but I hadn't really had too much coordination experience. And I got given the opportunity to move to Sydney and become a BIM manager. And of course, big city in Australia, good salary, good company, of course I'm going to do it. But I sort of missed a step in between, and I had to sort of face that reality maybe about a year and a half into that role, where I said, well, I know what I'm doing, but there's certain pieces that I'm just missing. So I actually chose to move on and step down into a BIM coordinator role for a few years just to get that experience, which was one of the best decisions I made in my career. So that was probably, like, I wouldn't call it a failure, but a challenge that I faced was just that I did need to face that reality and sort of take a professional step back. But in essence, it let me step much further forward by the time I got through some of those years of coordination, and gave me better connection with the way that we deliver projects. So that's probably my professional challenge. Personally,
Before going to the personal one, what was the biggest failure you faced?
Failures. I'm trying to think. I mean, there's been a lot of projects I've tried to set up in companies that haven't worked out. Like, certain Dynamo scripts or content suites I've tried to roll out that didn't do what they were meant to do. I've had a few times that I've developed systems for companies, and I've spent a fair amount of time on them too, and tried to communicate with everyone and then put it into action, and the systems were just too complicated. So I didn't anticipate that, I guess, something that's quite simple for me is sometimes quite hard for someone else who thinks in a very different way to me. I think as I worked with more people, I learned better ways to set up systems. But there've been systems I've built before that people just didn't relate to, especially earlier in my career, and so they're probably the biggest failures I've had. And I think we've all probably been there before as well. We've push something maybe one step too far and have to come back and say, hey, how do you guys actually want to do this?
And especially if
So,
you're when you're young in your career, you don't anticipate a lot of empathy and how the system works, how other people really collaborate, and there is a like conflict also arises because some people don't want change really, and they don't want to like learn because they're not so motivated, and it's really hard to like make them like allow them to think in the same way that you are thinking. And I understand your and we all pass through this and we learn. The most important thing, we need to learn how to like accommodate these kind of people and how to make a workarounds for these kind of people. So
yeah, there's sort of two levels to it. There's the people that like are almost working against BIM and don't want it to succeed. And then there's the ones that do want it to succeed, but they don't quite understand what you're trying to tell them. And that's the group that I'm more focused on, where if they have the right idea or the right system, they will follow it. But if they're the ones saying that, BIM ruins architecture, I'm like, I don't want to talk to those people.
Like I have kind of a couple of quotes for this, because when they say BIM ruins architecture, actually AutoCAD also ruins architecture. So you need to still do the design and pen and paper. Like if you do with the kit lines, you constrain yourself to the software. So BIM does the same thing. It's just you constrain yourself, your design to the software. So if you actually, instead of using a software, if you use your creativity and you're like conceptually anything, all your designs in whatever platform you want, and you use your BIM for production, then actually it benefits you because you can spare more time on designing and less time on production. So when you change a couple of bits and pieces, it's all about information management. People are confused about like BIM when like they say it ruins the like the workflow, because they think about BIM is Revit, and BIM is in reality is information management. So they don't understand that. It's like how you manage the information and how you set up the collaboration workflow. That's all about BIM. So if you set the right collaboration and you use the right tools, and like from the start to the end, like you can use multiple tools as soon as it supports your workflow and collaboration and your information management. So that's all about it. But people just directly compare it to it's a Revit, it's ArcCAD, and it ruins your architecture. And that's a bit wrong, because they don't understand the whole picture and what is it all about. And I think that is the main reason why they just, they have this kind of debate.
Yeah, I agree. And I find sometimes you can change their mind showing them a good system. And sometimes you can't, like, even if they see a good system, it's not their system, so they don't want to see it. So sometimes you figure out which battles are worth fighting or which ones you're going to win, and which battles have already been lost before you even started talking to them, I guess. So there's a lot of different types of people.
It's a little bit I think it goes to beyond, technical skills. It's more about people management, I would say, and change management. So it's like kind of how can you, it's not about BIM, but it's about changing that person's mindset. So it's about, you need to manage that person and do kind of like a people management techniques. So in a way to showcase him like step by step how it can evolve better things. Maybe, you need to find how to communicate with him efficiently. You need to understand, like show him some empathy. You need to manage your conflicts with that person. So in that way, I actually managed to convince a couple of people who were like hardly like, I don't want BIM. It's like it will ruin our workflow, and they start seeing bits and pieces. We start communicating effectively, and they start making empathy, and they start seeing results, and actually they slowly start changing their mind, because some people, it's natural that they are really like narrow-minded, and it's there's no offense, but it's just that they stick to one thing and they don't want to do like the best. But it's sometimes good that like narrow mind is good, like finishing tasks and delivering results, yes, but sometimes it's good to open your perspective and seeing other things that might actually be more efficient in the long term. So that's like kind of the debate.
Exactly. It's about making people comfortable too, I guess. A lot of people aren't necessarily comfortable using BIM at first, and it can be hard for them to break that comfort barrier. And I find sometimes showing them how they can fit into the process is the key as well, saying there is a place for you with BIM. You don't have to be opening Revit, but maybe you're using a collaboration program, you're just looking at a 3D PDF. Like, you find that little gateway for them into the process, and that's usually what I find helps too, if they can see that they still have value in the workflow of BIM or the processes of BIM.
That's correct. Would you like to learn more about BIM management? Sign up to a live webinar we are launching soon so you can get the access to the live discussion. Yes, it's live this time, and I will be delivering a topic about big BIM, small BIM, interoperability with BIM, and as well as change management with BIM. So we can discuss all of your questions and get them answered directly during our discussions. Hit the link below. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you there. And how do you think the BIM will evolve in the future, and what excites you really on that thing? And after that, we will be speaking about the future of your channel as well.
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, BIM's changing a lot. Every day I see something new that I didn't think about the other day. And I mean, obviously, one of the most exciting things in BIM is that programming and information is becoming so much more important. Which is, it's funny because like if you came to me 5 years ago, I still would have said information is the most important part of BIM, but I was sort of just waiting for the industry to realize it too, I guess. In that 3D modeling is great, but it's like, what's the point of it if you're not generating a meaningful set of data, or beyond, almost beyond drawings, like the data, what does it become beyond the project? Like, I mean, I'm really enjoying some of these ideas, like sort of digital twin. I feel digital twins maybe a little bit too misdirected at the moment. It's more like a marketing thing for some people, but I like the concept of taking the value of the BIM model beyond the construction of the project itself.
Especially the artificial intelligence with BIM. I mean, it's like when when you do data-driven approach, rather than bottom to up, like normal construction, you do top down. So you see what data you need, what kind of end results you're looking for, all your constraints, and you derive your BIM with a data-driven approach. And that is really, like with AI tools and some interesting other like software out there, like coding, you can really get a good result.
Yeah, artificial intelligence is definitely like an interesting field. I'm still waiting, I guess, for it to be obviously apparently relevant to me right now, because there's a lot of things that AI does that we don't see, like predictive analysis on Google searches, for example. So like it's hard to sometimes be excited about something that you can't realize so obviously. But I can see some companies really starting to collect like proper big data, which is actually structured and formatted so that routines can start learning from them. And I'm quite interested to see, I guess, where that field evolves to. I feel like we got maybe a little bit too excited too early about AI and needed to think about what is the AI going to use and what's its purpose. It's not, we don't just collect data and then somehow the machine just figures out what the data means, and we don't take 7 data sources that aren't compatible and put them together and hope that a computer can understand them. But I think that I'm seeing some companies get very serious about the formats and the ways that they're collecting their data now, and how construction companies are starting to analyze their efficiencies and how projects are actually in reality being delivered versus the predictions, which is going to better inform some of those risk analysis tools, for example. So there's some quite interesting things going on there. And I'm obviously just enjoying watching the impact that computation has on the way that we deliver and the way that we operate. I mean, if I went back, say, 5-6 years, I would have had no idea that Dynamo was going to be such a big part of how I work and what I do. And I'm just seeing more and more steps in that direction. So things like, say, Rhino Inside, which lets you run Grasshopper inside Revit, like some of those things are absolute breakthroughs when they happen. Like you go, wow, like this is going to do so many more things for us now. Like the moment I opened Grasshopper in Revit, that was just like a jaw on the ground moment. Like I was like, suddenly all these possibilities just opened up for me. So seeing some of those interoperability opportunities and computational enhancement opportunities is obviously very exciting as well. And I think just outside the software, just the community of BIM that's emerging around the world and getting more connected, that excites me as well. So meeting people from all sorts of countries, all sorts of disciplines, and just being able to interact in a much more active and frequent way has been, really exciting actually, because people are just becoming more aware of what's happening, and I'm seeing the industry start to move in a more common direction, I guess, in a lot of places, whereas maybe 5 years ago I wouldn't have necessarily said that was happening. So yeah, they're all things that excite me right now. How about yourself? What excites you?
Actually, what excites me is like how it evolves is that we are actually going beyond the boundaries. So rather than working on the pure data, and before we were talking about as you said, information. Now we're talking about lean concepts, lean manufacturing systems. They came up with good systems rather than only having information and workflows. Like Henry Ford was thinking about let's do things faster. One person dedicated, and we'll just do things faster and faster and faster. but Toyota came up with a different approach and worked more on collaboration, worked more on continuous improvement, worked more on simplifying the workflows with like Kanban or other things. So that's like what we are actually hitting right now. We are thinking about like really talking about a lean construction. So we are talking about lean information. What do we really need? Let's just start focusing because like 10 years ago we were talking about LOD and LOX, hundreds of other things, but right now we are talking about, okay, what do we really need? And let's focus on that and let's get the most value for everyone in the industry. And I think the industry also, what excites me with the BIM, the industry started collaborating with each other. So I can see that more and more contractors collaborating with the architects and engineers, and like more developers are involved in the process and they are engaged with the process. That's what I like. I mean, it's in the end of the day all about the people, and like it said, BIM is like 10% technology and 90% sociology. So in a quote, and this is really important because it's all about people in the end of the day. So if we love collaboration, and I saw that you also work with like generative design in your channel. So there were like some generative design testing, and you want to really test. And I didn't see any augmented reality and virtual reality in your channel. I think virtual reality was like more like Enscape, I would say, but I didn't see anything on this source. Are you planning to do something like that?
Possibly. I mean, a lot of what I do on my channel is based on what people show me. And I guess augmented and virtual reality, I did find that there was a really big push and then it seemed to die off very quickly. And whilst big companies are very successfully using it with certain clients, I wouldn't say it's a one-size-fits-all solution. I have seen AR and VR setups fail quite a few times just because people went, this isn't working for me. Take off the headset. I want to, work and talk to people face to face. So I find if you can package I'd say like VR altogether, I'd say VR is a bit of a misdirection because you're sort of lost once you put the headset on. You're not collaborating with someone really. I mean, you can be like, environment where you can see all these digital avatars, but it's still a little bit too far removed from, I think, collaboration. I think AR's probably got more potential. I think obviously when we can get to the point of all sitting around a table with a holographic model together, pushing and pulling, obviously that's going to be like a really collaborative tool. But I guess AR still gives us some ways to look at that sort of collaboration mode where you're all viewing something, but you're all still in the same room together and you're not all wearing a headset, walking around, bumping into walls together. So I think that's probably where I would be more focused, probably augmented reality. And I've used a little bit of VR. I haven't tried too much AR out on projects. It still feels a little bit like a gimmick sometimes where you're just trying to go, how cool is this? And you bring up an iPad and they go, oh, okay, but they don't necessarily understand how to apply it straight away. And I think some of the tools are still emerging in that market too. They're not necessarily all like layman friendly, but some of them are. But like, for example, like a Unity model, like that can be quite hard to set up. Even if the end result is really good, like there's a lot of work that goes into developing that. So maybe a year down the track, I might be adding some of those things to the channel. For now, I found that the focus of the industry is still very much on computation, data, processing, efficiency. That seems to be the general narrative of what people want, and also just how to deliver a project. Yeah, and a lot of students too. So because a lot of students, they don't necessarily see how the industry works when they're at university. Not every course is built to reflect reality, unfortunately. So I do find that a lot of them just want to see like, how do I set up a BIM model? They're still sometimes looking for the basics and not always reaching for these futuristic concepts, which might sometimes be realistic on projects, but other times maybe 3 steps ahead of where they're aiming to be. So I'd say maybe down the line I might get some devices on the channel maybe and play with them and come on camera and you can see what I'm seeing and do some of those fun things. There is a channel I really enjoy. There's a guy called Joseph Kim, and he does a lot of really great device reviews, and he does a lot of AR, VR, Enscape. I find he's really fun to watch. So I'm not sure if I'll even bother because there's already some people out there that do such a good job that I'd probably just recommend them as well. So I find I don't necessarily want to do everything on my channel, but at the same time, like maybe I might explore things here and there. And there's a few things coming up in a few weeks that are a little bit out of the ordinary for my channel. But I think I've still got a lot of stuff to cover with Dynamo. I'm maybe halfway through my list at the moment of Dynamo tutorials since I started, and there's more coming every day, more requests. So I'm not sure when I'm going to escape Dynamo.
Awesome. Yeah. We are really excited, and we will speak a little bit more about like future of your channel and how we are going to like turn your channel into something bigger. But before that, hit the subscribe icon below, because we will be sharing BIM talks every 2 weeks, and we'll be inviting different guests like Gavin, Marzia, Jonathan, and these guests will share their BIM experience and BIM knowledge with you and with the industry. So hit the subscribe icon, turn the notification bell on, and you don't miss any of the great videos. And we will be concluding our talk as well with great advice from the Gavin, so stay until the end. So what about your like channel? Can you talk about a bit over your channel, like the future of your channel?
Yeah, it's interesting. I do have to think about this quite a lot. Like, what is it going to become? Is it just a side project? Is it a main focus for me? I still haven't decided what capacity of my career is going to be based on my channel and what happens beyond the channel. Because I've obviously got my consulting business too, which is a separate brand, and that's become its own thing. And I'm looking at eventually maybe, joining up with collectives here and there as well. So there's a lot of avenues. And I feel like the channel I've always tried to keep as a relatively like impartial platform that it's not there to make money, it's just there to educate. Obviously I can't feed myself off off just free videos on YouTube. I don't really like ads very much on YouTube, so I can't imagine I'm going to monetize it anytime soon, and I know that I won't make that much money from monetizing anyway. Whilst I could try to make it into like the B1M, for example, like there already is the B1M, so I don't necessarily just want to copy another successful channel. So I think like it's going to be tutorial based for a fair while. I'd say I've still got at least a year of topics I could cover quite comfortably on the side of what I'm already doing. And I do 2 videos a week, so that's 104 videos a year. So there's quite a few. But I find sometimes the channel changes just when I see things that I like, that I'm testing out or playing with. So when I say that's like a year of videos, I'll probably have about half of them will just come to me during the year. So I feel like as long as I'm always observing the industry and seeing what's happening, I feel like I'll always have something to share. So I think that's what I want to keep the channel as. I always want it to be a way for me to share things with other people that may not necessarily find them or understand them. So I think I'm going to keep it as an educational platform.
Content-wise, are you going to focus on Dynamo and Revit, or are you planning to involve other software products?
Yes. So I think I'm probably going to get more involved with Rhino and Grasshopper. I think that's going to become a very relevant platform, or more relevant as manufacturers get more involved with BIM, because it achieves very complex solutions that typically a manufacturing capacity requires. So I think as I move forward, I will find more opportunities to share some of those more complex workflows. I do want to get more into Rhino inside Revit. I think that's a very powerful connection, and I've only really done a basics series on it so far, whereas there's actually some pretty complex workflows that I've developed for Rhino inside that I can share. I think eventually generative design might enter the channel properly, but for now I'm still a little bit skeptical as to how much work it takes to set up a generative study. That usually doesn't justify like the business case for doing it in the first place, because it just takes so long to generate a script for one of those things.
It would be also nice to watch a comparison, kind of like when you do Rhino and Grasshopper, and what is the downsides of like Dynamo, and what things you can achieve with Rhino better, like when a Grasshopper better, so people can understand a little bit more. Okay, if we need this kind of solutions, this works better because of this and this and that, and people will have a better idea why we need both workflows. And a lot of architects, especially in the US, they prefer to use a Rhino. And if you manage a great collaboration, it's not only for manufacturers, but it's also for architects, pull their concept models, because they would like to have I think they find Rhino a bit like more freedom of doing conceptual design and some design ideas integrated, but it's not really great software for production, like as BIM authoring tools. So it has some plugins, but obviously I didn't explore them up to in depth, so I wouldn't be able to say anything. I'm not an expert in this industry, but as far as my knowledge,
I mean, I think one thing I will focus a bit more on is not always just doing technical tutorials. I have tried to start introducing some like conversation topics almost. I did one the other week on should you study BIM, for example. And I think I'm going to start adding some of those. So I'm not just sharing my technical knowledge, but also just my industry experience as well, which will probably lead me to want to eventually bring people onto the channel to talk with me and to cover how they set up a project, for example. I wouldn't mind introducing people in that capacity to the channel eventually, so it's not just me talking to everyone, because I guess part of what I do is to foster a community, and maybe bringing that community to the channel makes sense, like sort of like what you're doing, I guess. But like one thing I would really like to do eventually is actually bring people onto the channel for videos where we actually look at like their project if they get permission to show it, and they can talk about the challenges they faced and how they solved really complex problems, not just using BIM but also just from a standards and a management perspective, and that might better help show people like real world problems and how they might relate that solution back to their own challenges, rather than me just saying here's a cool Dynamo script and it'll save you time. It's them saying, we did something really complex here, but I'm going to, run you through just the basics of what happened. And also people just get to see better quality BIM models as well, because not many people share their models because of intellectual property issues. And yeah, it's very rare that you actually get to see like a real BIM model.
That's correct, unfortunately. It's a very traditionalized industry.
Yeah, it's still like a very closed industry when it comes to sharing content. Like I released a free Revit model the other week, and I think it's already had 500,000 downloads in like a week. So there's obviously a demand for just free content that people can review and learn
Absolutely.
from. So if there's a way I can bring that to the channel in a wider capacity than just me showing what I do.
It is now the right time. Type down your questions and comment below, because Gavin and I will try to reply and answer those questions as much as possible. Obviously, you know that this is not a live conversation, so therefore we will try to reply this as soon as you comment and put your questions down. And let's listen a little bit about like BIM advice from Gavin, and this will be the last bit of our conversation today. So stay until the end because there will be great advice from Gavin. So I think you need to listen to that.
So I guess my biggest piece of advice for BIM is just to be aware and to experiment. Don't close yourself off from the industry. For example, a lot of people I meet, even myself, they just go, I need to learn Revit. I'm going to lock myself in a room for the next 4 years and become the Revit master. And then they come out of their bunker at the end and everyone's gone and no one's using Revit anymore. So it's like, don't limit your perspective to just one tool or one workflow. Understand that BIM is a really wide and broad field of processes and workflows and disciplines. And that the more you can learn about all those things, even if you don't know how to do them, the more capacity you'll have to work with different types of people in different ways. And if you can learn more about interoperability workflows or interoperating platforms, for example, like Rhino 3D is a great program to pass lots of file formats through. I use it all the time just for passing files around. And I'm not like a Rhino master, but I at least know how to get files between programs. That's a huge thing as well. So don't just work in the RVT format.
Now there is a new standard coming up by the end of this year. It's a European standard, and it's going to be a really interesting one. And Marzi is really doing hard work with her team on that. So we'll be doing another video on that one as well.
Awesome, yeah. So I think just learning about the framework and just the context of where you stand in the industry is really valuable. It's a really good thing I've learned from doing my channel. I've heard from a lot of people doing a lot of different things, and I probably wouldn't have really known all these things if I hadn't made the choice to put myself out there and just talk to people and be comfortable being uncomfortable, I guess is how I'd put it. So I think that's my biggest piece of advice. And beyond that, just try to standardize to some degree. Don't just do architecture, like try to do BIM as well. Don't just see the tools and the standards as a means to an end, because eventually that means it's going to go beyond the end. So like things like digital twins are going to mean these things are much more valuable beyond just producing drawings or producing a building. So if you're involved in BIM, try not to just learn about modeling and drawing, because that's really like a narrow way of looking at BIM. It's more about learning about the bigger picture and how it's going to evolve. And I think that will also make you more valuable as an employee in future as well, because if you can only do two things and a robot comes and replaces one of them, well, they're probably going to question the other one. So it's just worth being aware and upskilling where you can. And just having fun as well. Try to do things that you like to. Don't just learn for the sake of learning. Try to follow your passion and your aspects, and look for companies that do what you like doing. Don't just go for the first job you find as well, because I know it's a competitive job market. So the temptation is just there to take the highest paying job or the first job you find. Try to pick a company you really like working for, and take it from me. I've worked at something like 6 companies now, I think. So I've obviously haven't found that company I liked working at yet. Luckily, I work for myself, so I can't quit. But I guess it's worth trying to really think about your next step before you take it. That's probably probably my main career advice there as well. So I'd say they're probably my main pointers. How about yourself? What would you say your main BIM do-don't is?
I'm really into interoperability. Like you said, it is about like, I'm happy that Building Smart is working on the IFC and developing it more and more. Like the IFC 4 is not accomplished by a lot of companies, and it's really strange because they're still using IFC 2x3, and they can actually use IFC 4, and Building Smart can push themselves harder and find better solutions. But now in these days, now in 2020, people are realizing that, and they're trying to push more and more towards IFC 4 and new IFC standards because they want to encourage interoperability. And that's one of the great advices that you suggested. You should not work solely on Revit because Revit is the leading like marketing and leading industry. Like Autodesk because covering up to 70 or 60% of the industry. So it's not about that. It's about you and your company and your workflow. So think about what makes you happy, what makes your workflow sustainable, what makes your workflow efficient, and focus on those solutions. So if Revit is not really like major part of it, maybe it's small part of it, maybe it's not a part of it, maybe you just prefer ArchiCAD or you prefer TechLab. I mean, you will obviously focus on that thing. And interoperability will allow you in the near future more collaboration between different software products. So it wouldn't really matter what software you're using. It's about what kind of data and information and quality models you're providing. So, and I'm really happy that many other software vendors are providing a lot of training now, because like before Revit was, there was a lot of training available for Revit. But when we think about like from a high level, when we see other software products, there weren't enough training for the other software products. But today is not like that. Today we have loads of training out there, and there's loads of channels like us. We're providing free content for the audience, and we would like you to consume that. So if you consume those things and use it efficiently, you can actually build a lot on your career and even on your company workflows. So it's all about mindset again. I will point out to the mindset, and I think it's if you change your perspective in BIM, and you will really get the true benefit. Otherwise, if you just use Revit, you will not get, maybe you might get some benefit, but you will not get the true benefit from BIM.
Well, it's less about what you're doing for yourself and more what you're doing for the bigger picture, isn't it? You're not just the team, you're a part of a team, and if that team isn't all benefiting from the way you work, it's worth questioning, what is the best way to work and interoperate. And you don't have to not use Revit necessarily, but it's more like, how do you use it? What do you get out of it? How do you pass data from Revit to other places? Are you getting the most out of not just your workflow, but also the tool that you use as well? And I thought it was good that you mentioned that there's a lot more companies marketing now, and despite all the heat that Autodesk gets for, obviously having very aggressive marketing tactics, I think that's one of my favorite things about them, that they sort of forced every other company to try a little bit harder with their marketing. So it's an interesting point that they have to actually, make a lot more effort and move with their products to compete with the giant that is Autodesk. So I do really respect that they've also probably pushed a lot of competition forward as well, compared to maybe if they weren't around, every other product wouldn't be so out there and so well marketed. So it's an interesting dynamic in our industry. It's fun to watch too.
Absolutely, I definitely agree, and I think it's good as well, because when there's a kind of Autodesk is pushing other companies, and they're actually challenging themselves as well, because other companies come up with better solutions and they have to catch up and they have to build even better, and the other companies have to build a better solution. So it's a never-ending process. And when there are like a lot of good solutions, as a users, we can choose what works best for us. So that's why I think what you said is very important, and they like pushing each other is very important. That's why we're collaborating in this channel. We want to push each other and make even better things and be even more valuable to our audience. And it's all about it. And we want to build a community and want to deliver more results for you. So
yeah, well, freedom of choice is very valuable. I mean, it's great. Even on YouTube, it's nice to know that everyone doesn't just have to come to my channel. There's other people out there too that can offer their perspective, and I think that's really good. And I get to watch you guys too. That's the best part. Like, I watch your videos too and go, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. So it's nice to get that perspective and see all those people comfortable putting their opinions and their thoughts and their workflows out there. And it gives me a great way to sort of just sanity check my own content and go, oh, did I do it the best way? Maybe not, because I just saw someone did it. And whilst I don't go and make my own competition video and go, oh, I'm going to do it his way, it's more just nice to have that freedom of choice and freedom to see how other people choose to operate and run their channels, run their ideas, and even people like the Revit kid, he's been really good over the past few months doing a lot of talks with a lot of different people. I've really enjoyed seeing all the perspectives that he's gathered, and
it's one of the good inspiration for the industry. Yeah.
And he was the first person I learned from on YouTube. So I actually learned a lot of my initial Revit from his channel. So I really respect sort of what he's doing as well, and also what you're doing. It's just great to see all the different people out there.
Absolutely. And I mean, like, one of the most important thing over here is that we don't see each other as a competitor. Obviously, in bracket, it might be in the channel, different channels are competing each other, but it's not like that. It's about providing value, because if there's a value in every channel, people will consume it. So it's about how we can provide better value. That's why we are looking at each other's content and learning from each other, so we can deliver more value to the audience. And that was a main inspiration for us, because we were repeating the same things again and again, and we were like saying, okay, why don't we reach like a larger audience and don't repeat the same things again? Like, for example, what is Revit? And we have a video about it. So if you click on the pop-up link above, you'll be able to see what is Revit. And we want to answer those questions for a larger public, so they can actually go and watch that, rather than we refer and answer the same things again and again. And we start building better value content, and they can consume more information and they can learn more about it. Otherwise, we have a limited time, like Gavin, I, and Revit Kid. Like, there are other people. Like, we have a limited time, so we cannot provide a lot of like value to the people. Like this, we did through YouTube. We can answer other questions that have to the larger audience.
Yeah, I agree. It's nice being able to refer people on to other people's videos as well sometimes. I mean, there was a guy, Revit Pure, and he did a really good video on shared coordinates. And if anyone gives me a shared coordinates question, I just send that video to them. I just go, oh, I don't have to answer that question, thank God, because we all know how fun shared coordinates are in Revit. So it's nice to have those sort of handball videos sometimes as well, so that you don't have to take on every single question in the industry too. So it's valuable that we all sort of support each other and represent each other in a wider audience, and we all know each other too. I guess that's one of the most valuable parts to it. And even before, I was saying it's nice when people can cover different topics. Like, for example, Milos, or the Vulcan architect. It's great that he's there too, because he covers a lot of fundamentals.
Absolutely. He does a great job, actually.
And I don't really cover a lot of fundamentals, but someone has to. So it's great that he has that side covered as well. So between us all, we sort of cover a really wide range of perspectives and experiences and countries. And when it all comes together, it's quite a fun little community that I guess we're building.
What we need in our industry as well, support of influencers, because I can see in the other industry, like music and other world, like any other industry, actually they're supporting each other. Even like BIM Fashion, if you take a look at about them, they're collaborating a lot. Even though they're like huge channels or small channels, they're like really collaborating. But for the AEC industry, we are still, even though we are providing BIM and technology, we are not collaborating that much. So hopefully this will be great message and good message for the other channels, and we will try to reach out to them as well, try to host them as well. Like, you can see behind the scenes how they're working, more about them, like Gavin, because you're seeing the Gavin in front of the like YouTube channel, but how he's behind the scenes is really important, and you can really connect through the BIM talks. So that's why don't forget to like this video, and hopefully we can receive all your questions and we'll be happy to answer those. Do you have any comments, Gavin?
Just thanks for inviting me on. It's been great to meet you properly. Having seen you on YouTube and being able to put like a person to the face that I've been watching. I really respect what you're doing with integrated BIM, and I look forward to seeing what you do in future. And if anyone watching wants to reach out, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or Twitter, or just email me at aussiebimguru@gmail.com. I try to respond to everything that I can, which so far is everything. I haven't missed a single comment on YouTube somehow, which takes a fair bit of work, but I'm sure one day I'll drop a comment or two. But yeah, just get in touch if you have anything that you want to ask. I can say some things like, unfortunately, sorry, I know I don't have any jobs for you, but I can say I can give you advice, and I can help you, and I can give you ideas of how you can focus on your career or BIM. And yeah, I look forward to hearing from more people, and also staying in touch with you on your channel, and building that community over time. Yeah. And also you can find all the links in the description below, because it will be easier for you to just click on the links and hit to his channel, Twitter, and LinkedIn accounts. After watching this entire great talk, watch a little bit more about Marzio. We discussed the level of information need and some great BIM advice from Marzio Bolpagni. If you didn't watch this video, I definitely suggest you to watch. Also, we have an entire BIM playlist which can bring a lot of value to you. Therefore, I definitely suggest you to watch that one as well. See you next time.